And if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they will surely say, Allah. Some do not know. To Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth.
And Pakistan Association of Petroleum Geoscientists. The first event was held in 1994. Regulators all play a very active role in this event, and the event is organized by volunteers. Sitting on the stage, we have the chair of this conference for petroleum engineering, Chairman PAPG, Dr. Saeed Saab, Irfan Khan, technical chair for GNG. Mr. Zahir Mir did his bachelor's in petroleum engineering from UET Lahore, followed by an MBA. Currently he is working as the managing director of Pakistan Refinery Limited. He is chairman of this.
Vice Chairman ATC, Mr. Shahid Salim, Mr. Nadeem Babar, Chairman PAPG, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. He's very busy, he has to go early today. I'd like to appreciate he has been delivering this great platform for the last many years. It's such a holders working in the E&P sector basically disseminate the knowledge and this has been such a great platform which has been so useful for the industry. This even provides partnership to go forward. Now before the theme of the current conference and talk about the industry of quantities and production of Pakistan, let's say in the last 5 years, you would see that the production is pretty much stable. As you look at the numbers in 2013 and 14, the total production of oil 85,000 barrels per day. We were producing about a little more than 4 TCF. If you see the number of wells 14, so you can see there is a major issue as far as the oil and gas industry of Pakistan is concerned. About between 20 to 30, but if you see the sizes of this discovery, you would see that not discovering as much as we are producing. If you see the last 10 years production, so there is, although there is a need to do more in conventional reservoirs, we need more blocks. And if you look at the last bit that is required to do more in the conventional sector, it is important to think out of the box and go to unconventional also. As far as the unconventional is concerned, according to the studies, Pakistan is number 9 in the list, which has the most unconventional resources. The resource that we are talking about goes into hundreds of TCF. We don't have to find new gas. It's not exploration. The gas and oil is already there. The resource is there. Now what we need to do is we need to focus and find new technologies and see how can we change this resource from resource to reserve. So even if we are able to, the current gas reserves in Pakistan is about 21 TCF. The oil reserves is about 500 plus BCF, million barrels of oil. And the resource that we have, that we know, which is already there, if we can exploit that resource and change that resource into reserves, even 5%, that will double the existing reserves of Pakistan. So we need to focus. We need to focus on the shale gas and oil, and also on the offshore. Offshore is the second largest sedimentary basin in the world, and we have not done much as far as the offshore is concerned. We have drilled a recent well. The number of wells which have been drilled in offshore are very few. There have been very few successful, technically successful wells. So the theme has been selected to provide an opportunity to the technical professionals and regulators. So the regulators also here. I did not see the secretary sitting here. Secretary Hayauddin Saab is here. He's here. So the regulators and technical professionals to think differently and collaborate to understand issues and challenges, and try to unlock new technical solutions to create new opportunities for growth in the huge but untapped areas of offshore and conventional indigenous resources. So this is why we are here. I mean, this conference, I mean, I'm told that I'm very happy that there are 20 national and international companies are participating in the exhibition. More than 1,000 professionals and 100 students and academia. 32 technical papers are being presented. Students are also participating. 22 student papers are also being presented. So I think here is an opportunity for all of us to tap the unconventional resources, and I'm sure that we'll discuss and find a way. So at the end, I would like to thank the organizers, especially the organizers for organizing this wonderful event. And I really want to appreciate the efforts of these volunteers, these people who selflessly work very hard to make this happen. And I'm also thankful to the E&P companies, service companies for providing sponsorship to all the events. And I wish you all a wonderful conference. Thank you very much.
It is an honor and privilege to have the Special Assistant to Prime Minister, Mr. Nadeem Babar, here with us as the chief guest. Worldwide experience in development, financing and management of energy projects. He started his career as an investment banker. He has BA Economics and BSc West. Mr. Nadeem Babar to come to the podium and share his thoughts, please.
On the podium, Excellencies, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. Professionals, as my colleague said earlier. And I'm quite sure that come out of these sessions. So with that positive note, let me actually, a population of 220 million people with the annual energy consumption of roughly 90 million tons of oil equivalent. By any global measure, we are an energy-starved nation. And while it may not show up directly, it is undoubtedly the case that this low level of energy usage affects our overall GDP growth and affects our overall economic health. But it doesn't stop there. If you look at our numbers from last year, close to $16 billion of imports of hydrocarbons, when our total exports were only about 25 billion. Not a good equation. Look at the refineries. We import close to 60% of our need of finished products. And the refining capacity that we have most of it is very old and completely outdated. And if I may be frank with this House, a lot of those refineries really need to shut down. Look at the gas side. From being a gas-rich country and from being one of the pioneers in having the highest percentage of gas in the total energy pie, 40 to 50% of our primary energy since the 60s has come from gas. When the whole world was burning oil and coal, we were burning gas. Not by design, but perhaps by happenstance. And we were on to what is considered to be the clean fossil fuel of the future. But where are we today? From a peak of little over 4 BCF, we are now on a decline. We're producing 3.78, 3.8 BCF. And unless something dramatic is done, this number is declining about 5 to 7% per year. And what's the result of that? The result is that we decided to import LNG, which was a necessity at the time that that decision was made, but of course is much more costly. And when you look at the overall cost of gas that we are providing to our industry, we've made it uncompetitive. Look at the LPG sector. We have these cycles of feast and famine. We go through the summers where all the LPG producers and the importers are crying bloody murder. And then we come to winters when the prices shoot up and we face shortages. What are we doing to our sector here? We need to reflect upon where we stand today. But not all is doom and gloom. This is where we were, let's say, last summer. And while some of those trends are here to stay in the short term, but let's take stock now of what has the government been trying to do in the last few months, and what is it that we intend to do in the future. And most of all, what can you all do as the industry? What I have explained to you as the scenario, it doesn't have to be that way. It has to change. It must change, and it can change. And I have no doubt in my mind that you shall be the agent for that change. So what has the government been working on over the past many months? The government is trying to open up and reform all of these subsectors that I've talked about. The government clearly feels that we need to upgrade our refineries and we need to build new refineries. I'm sure you all know we're working on 2 new refineries. We're talking about upgrading some of the existing refineries that are in the government's control. And the objective, of course, is that we need to bring our oil industry in line with modern practices and modern technology today. What is the government doing on the gas side? Well, after a gap of 5.5 years when no block was tendered, when the government came in, about 7 to 8 blocks were immediately tendered, and because they were tendered without any roadshow or marketing, most of them ended up, not all, ended up with the national companies. But now the government is embarking on a major initiative of tendering 35 to 40 blocks starting next month in 3 rounds. We've gone around the world, hit all the usual spots, gone to Canada, gone to the US, gone to Abu Dhabi, gone to China, gone to Russia. So we are trying to make people aware that we are coming out with a new bid round, and a big one. And what is our objective in doing all that? Well, our objective is, whether we want to admit it or not, what we tout as our success, that 1 in every 3 wells is successful in Pakistan, is actually a negative, because it tells us that we are not drilling enough. We really need to double, triple our drilling. And when we do that, we will reverse this trend of decline in our production. So that is clearly the objective that the government has set for itself and expects reciprocation from the industry. What are we trying to do to the LPG sector? Well, we are working on trying to completely open it up, liberalize it, and create a situation where we do not have these booms and busts, where we have stable supply and relatively stable pricing. And in doing so, we've had numerous consultations with the entire industry. And while we want to get past this winter without any shortages, you will see that come spring, we'll come up with a completely revised and new approach to LPG. What are we doing to LNG? We do believe that LNG is here to stay, but we've decided that that sector needs to be completely opened up. And I'm sure many of you would have read that the government has allowed all 5 companies that were wanting to put up private sector terminals, government has allowed all 5. It is not for the government to decide who has the muscle and the market clout and the power to succeed. It is for the market to decide. The government is the least informed about it. So unless the government is procuring capacity and commodity itself, in which case, of course, it has to go through that process to make a selection, it is not for the government to decide who is the anointed one. Let the market forces decide. I can go on and on. We are doing major restructuring on the pipeline side. We've converted them to open access pipes. And in the next 2 years, we intend to separate transmission from distribution and open up the sector for use through the private supplies and open access. Let private sector compete with the government distribution companies and let them run faster and become more efficient. With this background, what is it that the government expects of you as the industry? Please remember the government footprint in the coming years in the energy sector, and for that matter other sectors, is going to shrink. That is not only the stated policy, that is a fervent desire and intention of the government. It is not the role of the government to keep taking more and more space in economic sectors and keep crowding out the private sector. It is the role of the government to create the environment, create policies that attract the investment, and in doing so ensure the interest of the consumer and all the stakeholders. But at the end of the day, it is you all, the investors, the technicians, the professionals, the engineers, the lenders, you are the ones who have to actually make it happen. In the last 12 months, the government found the economy as a patient that was profusely bleeding and near death. The patient is now not only stabilized, the patient is standing on its own legs and intends to start walking and start running very soon. But that cannot be done by the government alone. That has to happen hand in hand with the industry. So I submit to you all, I've been a private sector person all my life, and it's only in the last 12 months that I've moved over to the public side. I submit to you that it is times like these that provide the best opportunities for investors. Companies that are in the E&P business, and lately even the refining business, they are not faint of heart. The nature of the business requires them to take huge risks. But it is opportunities and times like this and places like this where you have hit bottom and you're coming up that provide the best opportunities. And all the positive indicators that you, I'm sure, are following in the past couple of months in terms of economic stabilization and clear signs of impending growth, all are there. This is the time. But we face a serious challenge that affects both the government and the industry, and as a result, ultimately, consequentially, the consumers. And that challenge is our industry has become too used to status quo. And if I may use a really American term, it's become too fat and happy. We need to change that. And how do we change that? There are three elements. Number one, the policy side. Number two, the human resource. Number three, the technology. The policy side I've just talked about. And before I close on that, let me submit to you all, the government today is the most receptive ever that I have seen in my last 20 years of having done business in Pakistan, even when I was working from abroad. The government is the most receptive to ideas, suggestions, constructive criticism, and policy recommendations from the industry. Our doors are open. The secretary and myself and others in our ministry, our doors are open. Anything that this forum or any sub-forums or you individually as companies or individuals, anything that you feel would help the industry improve our policies, please come forward. Help us make better policies. That is our clear intention, and we expect support from you on that. Let me turn to technology. Thank you. Let me turn to technology. The theme of this conference, unconventional and offshore, it revolves around technology. My experience, having conducted business in 26 countries around the world, is technology is there for the asking. Those who do not ask for it do not get it. Don't ever think for a moment that what is available or what can be done in terms of technology in some of the most developed economies is not available to you. It is available to you. Is there for the asking, is there for you to take. You just have to figure out that in your own context, what is the best solution and what is the best technology. I'm delighted that OGDC is going to spud the first well for shale gas next month. And being a national company, that is their responsibility that goes beyond pure and simple commercial analysis. I'm sure all of you know that the shale gas revolution in Texas and rest of the United States, the origins of it were 40 years ago. People started working on it 40 years ago, and it took them 35 years to get to the point where the prices and the costs had dropped down and it became so commercially viable that today the 10-year futures in the US are below $3. We are fortunate in a sense that we can leapfrog and we don't have to spend 40 years to do that. That technology is there. And granted, in the first few wells, our cost is going to be high until we get to the scale that's needed to bring down the costs. But that's where you all come in. One individual company can't do the scaling up. The whole industry can. Similarly, on the policy side of technology, we are working on re-looking at pricing of unconventional sources, pricing of shale, and once again, any suggestions you all have, we would be delighted to receive it, discuss it, consult with you all, and convert into a policy formulation if it makes sense. So I expect that in the next 2 days, whatever discussions you have, whatever papers are presented, you come up with concrete ways to move the needle and upgrade the technological use in our industry here, bring it to a point where we can all be proud of what we've achieved here. We can all be proud to see that we are not so far behind in the technology space from some of the leaders in the industry. Now let me turn to the HR. Why is it that we have so many skilled Pakistanis all over the world who are source of excellence in whatever field they go into, yet we always complain about not finding good human resource in Pakistan? Why? And what can we all do to change that? Well, I'll tell you, as a visiting lecturer, I have taught at universities like Berkeley and I've taught at universities here. And I find no difference in the raw intellect and the enthusiasm of students. They're all the same. But once they move into professional life, they slowly start becoming jaded. And there are very few who get to the point where we can point to them and say, these are the individuals who can compete head to head with anybody else in the world. And those few, many of them migrate out. Why? Well, in the end, it's you all as the industry and we as the government who are responsible for that brain drain. What can we do to change that? Well, first of all, I think what we need to realize is that unless we build a nexus between the academia and the industry, with the government being the third leg of that, unless we build that nexus, we are going to keep operating in our silos. And when we keep operating in our silos, the opportunities will always be limited. We really need to look at this equation in a collaborative fashion. I'm delighted to hear that the organizers of this conference have sponsored students from all over the country. That's a welcome change. I hope this trend not only continues, it increases. But to conclude on that third theme, let me just say, it is important for the industry that not only do we upgrade the skill set we have here, we find ways and means to retain that skill set here. And in doing so, whatever support you need from the government, once again, our doors are open. Please come forward. Tell us what we need to do to make that happen. So let me now turn to my conclusion. I would like to just repeat the 3 or 4 themes I've talked about earlier. This industry, more than our export industries of textile, leather, sports goods, surgical, this industry has a much bigger and much longer lasting potential of changing our trade balance. But the government can't do it alone. The government can only create the frameworks and the policies. It is you, the industry, who has to take the next step. I would expect and I urge you all, this is the moment, carpe diem, seize the day. The economy has turned the corner, it has hit rock bottom and now it's coming up. And every day you'll read news in the newspapers about signs of that recovery. Be part of that recovery. Be leaders in that recovery. Be leaders in developing the human resource that is there in raw form. Don't squander it. This will also result in good business for you all. And last but most importantly, again tying back to the theme of this conference, we need to find technology and technological improvements and efficiency-driven improvements to lower the cost of doing business and to lower the cost of energy for this country. Only then can we make our economy competitive. and there is absolutely no reason why we can't do it working together. So with that, I'll conclude, and I wish you very useful discussion over the next 2 days, and I expect as deliverables to see some specific policy recommendations and initiatives coming out of this. Thank you very much.
Are important to the country and with direction from
Corps of Engineers in 1962. In 1982, he joined Stanford University, California, USA for postgraduate studies. He completed MS and PhD in Petroleum Engineering in 1980.
go to the next Lifetime Achievement Award.
Bashar in 1964, MS Geology for Oregon, USA in 1967, and PhD from London in 1977. Later, he joined University of Bashar in 1968 as a lecturer in 1973. He did his MSc Petroleum Engineering from Middle East Technical University. In 1992, he joined University of Alberta, Canada for advanced courses in petroleum engineering. He served Department of Petroleum Engineering as a faculty member throughout his
The next anybody here from Dana Petroleum? East Go. Arif Kamal Saab has arrived. I would like to request him to come and receive his. Next is Oil and Gas Development Company Limited, Oil Fields Limited, POL. Pakistan Petroleum Limited, PPL. OGDC. More enthusiastic delegates from PPL maybe.
Gas, I mean, we're talking about maybe 600 TCM of gas from offshore and from unconventionals being available. So we should see, and this is really driven by some of the factors that have already been talked about today. So it's just cuts deeper offshore and unconventionals. And as technology improves, you see we move from the larger volumes, conventional resources, into tight gas, tight oil, and deep offshore. Sometimes aided by increasing prices, sometimes not. But technology is really the most important driver for the development of these offshore and unconventional resources. And we've also seen a lot of talk about these resources. You can see here all of the various topics that could cause cost reduction. I won't go through them all. Stages for implementation, and we should see more of them over the next 5 years, with billions of dollars worth.
Managing Director for PPL in Pakistan. He assumes as the charge of the Managing Director and CEO DMD for Exploration and Business Development. Khan's association with PPL dates back to April 1983 when he joined the company as junior geologist after a fellowship scheme for a master's in geoscience at the University of Tulsa, USA. On his return in '85, he was designated as geologist after rejoined away from PPL. Khan worked with the UTP, ASMO companies operating in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Arabian Peninsula, Indonesia, Ireland and North Sea. Mr. Khan took over as his tenure saw rapid growth in the company's exploration portfolio and activities, which to date has trainings, including a rigorous executive development program on strategy and published over 40 technical papers in geosciences and various other disciplines. For warm welcome to you, Mr. Moinder Khan. Thank you very much. Next, Saeed Khan Jadoon. He is currently the Executive Director Exploration for OGDCL. Dr. Mohammad Saeed Khan Jadoon joined the OGDCL in 1990 and Director Oil and Gas Institute of Science and Technology. Currently, he is holding the position serving the Polish Oil and Gas Company, Pakistan, as the Managing Director. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Andre, as well. Commence with the questions and answer sessions. That just tells you what an illustrious panel we have today with.
We have been able to manage that shortage in a very expensive way through the use of LNG, which is why we need the industry support to increase our domestic production, both oil, gas and condensate, exchange, ports. And this is why today's subject is very close to my heart. We need to move it.
If I were to pick the topic, the theme, I would have to mention game changers rather than just game changers, because these things have yet to be proven really. But of course, there are huge potential. Offshore of Pakistan, if we take up exclusively economic zone, it has an area of 1.2 million square kilometers, which is larger than the onshore area of Pakistan. And the offshore delta and fan system is the second largest delta and fan system after Bay of Bengal. Number 3, the Pakistani Indus Delta is a perfect analog of producing many world producing deltas in the world.